So we just got out of our Discord office hours where we connect with our audience on Discord, and there was a discussion there that I wanted to bring out into the open. Let's talk about this journey from this to this. It's 1964. Lyndon Baines Johnson obliterates Barry Goldwater in one of the most decisive presidential victories in history. 486 electoral votes to 52. LBJ didn't just win, he beat Goldwater like a drum. And what were Americans voting for? Progress. The Civil Rights Act, the Voting Rights Act, the Great Society programs, Medicare, the war on poverty, the greatest economic expansion in human history. 60 years later, here we are. The Republican Party, the same party that got absolutely demolished for opposing civil rights and social progress, has somehow reversed the trend. They've clawed their way back from that electoral apocalypse, and now Democrats are playing defense on their own turf. And the latest battleground? Redistricting. Two iconic states, Texas and California, the avatars of red and blue America, with two of the most divisive governors in America battling it out in the headlines and in back rooms over congressional maps. Greg Abbott versus Gavin Newsom, cage match to the death. As you might imagine, I have thoughts. Hit subscribe if you haven't, share widely if so inclined, sign up for our free weekly newsletter at UNFTR.com, and remember, we are completely member-supported, so consider becoming a member as well. And let's go. UNFTR. Let's go back to that electoral map from 1964 and what it represented. LBJ's platform was crystal fucking clear. Federal activism, the Great Society, expand Social Security, create Medicare, fund education, fight poverty, build infrastructure, support civil rights with the full force of the federal government. Barry Goldwater stood for the opposite. Limited government / federal spending, opposed social programs, states' rights over civil rights. I mean, he actually opposed civil rights on constitutional grounds, even though he personally was not a segregationist. But here's the thing. Goldwater wasn't some fringe lunatic. He wasn't George Wallace. He was a moderate. He was well respected. But he represented yesterday, and LBJ represented tomorrow. And Americans chose tomorrow overwhelmingly. But that landslide victory, it kicked off something that we're dealing with today. The coordinated conservative backlash. Religious fundamentalists, reactionary political factions, wealthy libertarians, and straight-up bigots who saw civil rights and the feminist movements as the end of America as they knew it. And you know what? They were right. It was the end of America as they knew it. Now, this is the terrain that we've covered since starting our podcast, how they spent more than a half a century chipping away at progressive institutions and shifting the Overton window so far right that today's Democratic Party would be considered moderate Republicans in 1964. So we're not going to rehash all of that today. But keep that image of LBJ's electoral map in your head. Keep thinking about what Democrats actually stood for back then. And now fast forward to today. Democrats are finally debating actual measures to beat back Republican gains in electoral politics and Trump's death grip on the GOP. The party apparently removed its collective head from its own ass when Texas Governor Greg Abbott announced plans to redraw congressional districts this year. So this is huge. Redistricting typically happens after the census. It's once a decade. But Abbott's doing a mid-decade gerrymander. It's a bold maneuver designed to secure more House seats before the 2026 midterms. And it's part of a larger GOP strategy to buck the historical trend where the incumbent president's party gets hammered in the midterms. Enter Gavin Newsom, the self-appointed poster boy of the Democratic Party. Governor Handsome Winsome Newsom announced California's plan to do the exact same thing, to redraw their congressional maps to neutralize the Republican House seat pickups from Texas. And before I dive into my thoughts, let's be clear about the differences here, because they matter. Texas is running their redistricting like a backroom deal in a smoke-filled room, which is what it was. The Republican-controlled legislature called a special session, held some token public hearings, which critics said were basically theater with limited transparency and restricted public access to draft maps. Then they passed new congressional maps along party lines, Abbott signed them into law, and boom, done deal. Now, civil rights groups are already challenging the maps in court for racial bias and gerrymandering, But that's Democrats' only recourse. They had zero meaningful participation in the process, as we know. I mean, they had to even leave the state at one point. California's approach, though, is different. It's not pristine, but it's different. Since 2010, California has used an independent citizens commission for redistricting, so extensive public hearings, transparency, nonpartisan safeguards, the works. But in August of 2025, the direct response to Texas's maneuver, the Democratic-dominated legislature and governor authorized a temporary override. Here's the key difference. California's new maps have to be approved by voters in a statewide referendum this November. They're circumventing their own redistricting safeguards, yes, but at least they're putting it to a vote. It's temporary, lasting only until the next census. So we have Texas doing backroom deals versus California doing backroom deals, but at least asking voters to approve them. Not exactly inspiring, but there is a difference. Here's my problem. This seems to be the sum total of the Democratic Party's idea to fight fire with fire. And it has a lot of support because most of us are sick of watching Democrats play dead while the GOP just runs roughshod over the left. But is this the way forward? According to a recent New York Times research report, Democrats have a way bigger problem on their hands. Maybe the biggest difference between 1964 and today, the erosion of registered Democrats. Get this. In the 30 states that track voter registration by political party, Democrats lost ground to Republicans in every single one of them between 2020 and 2024. Every single one. That's a 4.5 million voter swing toward Republicans. For the first time since 2018, more new voters nationwide chose to register as Republicans than Democrats last year. Democrats lost about 2.1 million registered voters in these 30 states, while Republicans gained 2.4 million. So this isn't polling data that can shift with the news cycle. This is people actively choosing to disaffiliate from the Democratic Party or choosing Republicans when they register for the first time. These are the facts on the ground. And redistricting, sure as shit, isn't going to reverse this trend. Now, LBJ, love him or hate him, stood for progress. Even during the greatest economic expansion in human history, he understood that some Americans were being left behind, and that government had a role to play in fixing that. Today, Democrats are hemorrhaging registered voters, but they still outnumber Republicans by millions. But the new young voters that are registering with parties, they don't have the same loyalty that the older generations did. They're not dyed-in-the-wool anything. Independent voters, more than ever before, are up for grabs every single election cycle. So you want to make redistricting a non-issue? Here's a novel fucking approach. Have a platform. Stand for something. Republicans control 23 states with governor and both legislative chambers. Democrats only control 15. So is some of this gerrymandering? Sure. But mostly it's because Democrats don't have a coherent message, and we've lost the middle of this country because we helped ship their jobs overseas and then failed to fill the gaps, leaving us vulnerable to the inevitable shift in our politics from the coordinated efforts of the GOP to blame immigrants, to blame wokeness and DEI, anything but their repressive and regressive agenda that the Democrats have tried to adopt themselves for some reason. Consider this, man on the street shit. What do these parties stand for? If you asked anybody, dollars to donuts, this is what you'd hear. Republicans stand for free markets and liberty and closed borders, strong military and jobs. Now, this is bullshit, but they repeat it so often that everybody knows it. And ask anyone what Democrats actually stand for if you can get past stupid responses like wokeness, and they'll tell you that Democrats stand for not Trump. That's not a fucking ideology, let alone a platform. And look, I'm happy to support California's redistricting effort because it's going to voters and it's temporary. But the current Democratic leadership doesn't exactly inspire confidence that we're going to collectively remove our heads from our asses anytime soon. Every single one of these establishment Democrats has got to go. From AIPAC Shakur, Hakeem Jeffries to Nancy, how's my portfolio Pelosi. And reminder, you don't fight fire with fire. Even the fucking analogy is wrong. You fight it with water. You want answers? Listen to this clip of Graham Plattner.
Our taxpayer dollars can build schools and hospitals in America, not bombs to destroy them in Gaza.
I mean, look at that response. This is in Maine. Maine! Look at candidates like Zoran Mamdani in New York City. He's not just an awesome candidate, he has actual ideas. These people are tapping into the economic precarity that nearly every American is experiencing and saying, I got you. And then they tell you how they got you. It's so outrageously simple that I'm losing my mind. So yeah, California, redistrict to your heart's content. You're the big electoral dog. We couldn't do it without you. But we're not accepting your bullshit memes as a platform either. Unfuckers, it is Shawshank Redemption time. Get busy living or get busy dying. Here endeth the lesson. Hey, I know I'm all wound up today, so I appreciate you watching. Now, here are all the things. You ready? Subscribe to the channel, obviously, but make sure to sign up for a free weekly newsletter by going to UNFTR.com. And while you're there, check out our directory of progressive resources. In fact, we recently updated it with a ton of new resources. So go through our archive of original essays and our special series and find links to our podcasts and more. And if all of this fills your mind and your soul, consider becoming a member, like these beautiful people did.
This is the story of a political pundit who looked at the world around him and just said, fuck it. Gives the middle finger to authority and says, kiss my ass. But instead of a revolution, he started a podcast. Just what the world needs. Started a podcast. Another basic white guy who started a podcast. But it's fun because he curses all through the podcast. Unfucking the